Hello everyone, good morning. Today we are here to talk about two recently introduced Microsoft products called Flow and Power Apps. We'll also see how this can help your business to be more efficient and how it can be more quick to response.
So, quick intros. I'm Joe and this is Arun. We are consultants at Datacom with the Intranets and collaboration team. We do a lot of work around the SharePoint and Office 365 space. Our second names are just coincidence, just setting it right. Yeah. So before we start, it's quite critical to understand where Flow and Power Apps fits into the whole scenario and what problems it solves. So to understand that, we do a few quick session or few slides on understanding what the current business challenges are.
Yes. So current business, right? So if you see the current business, it primarily has to innovate faster so that it can keep up with the advancement in technology which happens outside the business market, especially the consumer market. And second important thing for every business is to actually to empower their end users so that the end users can be more productive. So when each one of the end users are more productive, it's good for the business. And finally, if you see any business, it has several set of systems. So it's also important to keep all the systems connected.
So usually the challenge that, or what's basically stopping businesses from achieving these things are the current business scenario or how it's structured and what the tools have is the business usually have a strong dependency on the IT team to build their solutions. I mean, even if it's big solutions or smaller ones, you need to depend on the IT to build. There's a lot of time taken to get that process done. The inability to derive insights out of your separate systems that you have, and basically the dependency that the different teams have on each other. So these are certain things that stop businesses from progressing faster.
Imagine if business can be more productive, like it can focus on what really matters, and if it can react in much more quickly and more efficiently, and also it allows the end user with the right set of tools so that they can be more productive.
Yeah, and if IT is more focused on building strategic solutions and solving other problems, let's say for taking the cloud platform and enabling or empowering their IT infrastructure and things like that. I mean, the idea is basically the core team should be able to focus on what they're supposed to do than solving other problems. And how do you think we can?
Exactly. I think we all can stop imagining because it's a reality now that we have Power Apps and Flow to rescue.
Yeah. So yeah, they're basically our superheroes here to solve our smaller, quick problems that business have in terms of getting these automations and building applications in a quicker way.
And it's not like the Batman versus Superman movie where they fight each other, but it's more about how they work together.
Yeah. So where does Flow and Power App fit into? It's basically if you take Microsoft's application platform scenario, the key components there are measure, act, and automate. Flow basically fits into the automate part of it, where you automate your business scenarios, while Power App kind of is the enabler where people can act or do stuff with data, and you also have the insights and things, which is Power BI. We're not covering Power BI here, but to give you the picture of where Flow and Power Apps fit into the whole Microsoft Business Application Platform. The power comes from the fact that these all are connected across, or these tools can basically connect your applications across your very specific or separate data groups and applications.
Yep. So let's see each component in detail. Like let's see Flow in detail and also Power Apps in detail.
Yep. So let's look at Flow first, and then we'll go into Power Apps. So what is Flow? from a definition of it, it basically is the tool which you would use to automate your apps and your services. It's you could always think about it as like your workflow component as well, but the power is basically you can connect your different systems, do some bit of logic around it, and the idea is it's all designed for your business users or your power users. It's not your IT that's targeted at IT. Definitely can build complicated flows, but the idea is the core user group is basically the business users and your power users. You could do things like simple automations, where your team is probably looking at Twitter feeds, or and when you see certain Twitter feeds coming in, I want to get notified, simple ones, or you could basically ask in conjunction with your IT or your power users, you could build complicated workflows around it. To look at flow in a high level, there are about 4 components that we can think of flow. There are templates, which we would cover in the next slide. It basically means that when you start building your flow, you start with a set of predefined templates that you could use, or you could start from scratch. Triggers are basically the point where you start off a flow, or when the flow kicks in and starts doing its stuff. Connections are basically what systems are you going to connect with flow, and actions are basically steps that the flow would do. We'd go through this in detail as well as look at them during the demo. So templates. So when you go into the flow site today, it's all available right now. You can sign in with your ID. It's in preview, but you could sign in with any of your IDs and start building your flows. When you go in there, you would see that there's already a predefined set of templates that you can use to start building your flows from. And there's a lot of ones published by Microsoft, but also from the community itself. The other option, like I said, is building your own. It gives you a nice designer on the web itself, which is targeted to, like I said, business and power users. So the UI is pretty friendly for users to start using Flow. Or the only when you want to build advanced ones, it's probably the power users can leverage more of the features there. But to start off with simple ones, the business users are pretty much capable of. Once you build the flow itself, you could also think about if you think that the template is reusable, other people can use the same templates. It's something that you can publish to. Right now, it goes out to everyone. There's no specific organization-wide template, but that's coming later. But as of now, you can share a template. It has to go through an approval process from Microsoft, saying that it's usable by others and makes sense. The web designer basically lets you or gives you a good user-friendly way to build your flows. Right now, it's mostly on the web. There is an app that has been released recently, or a mobile app that's been released recently, which you can use also to build your flows. But what we would be seeing later is through the web one. Connections are basically when you want to connect to your, or the whole scenario of connecting your various different systems. All the connections to your systems that you're familiar with, like Twitter, Facebook, Yammer, Office 365, CRM, all those are actually given to you. They are already available on Flow, but the real power comes when you can actually connect your custom APIs as well as expose your endpoints also to Flow. So you could do that. It's there, but that's probably like the power user scenario that we were talking about. What's coming up is also the gateways, which is basically when you want to bring your on-premise systems into Flow and start connecting them right now through the gateways you could connect to SQL Server as well as SharePoint. Connecting to external APIs, you would basically have to define your web APIs. It needs to be Swagger defined. Swagger is the open platform to define your APIs. But as long as you're able to define your APIs, you could basically add those connections to Flow, which means that it's available in Power Apps as well, and you could start leveraging those endpoints. So there was a lot of conversation around how does this fit in with logic apps, and what in the background it's basically logic apps that's running. So Flow basically is logic apps, but the user interface and the usability is targeted to the business and power users. So there are a lot of things that are managed in the background by Microsoft and Office 365 platform for you, rather than you building your Azure logic apps. So that's what Flow is. So there are scenarios where now you can start connecting your logic apps to flows through HTTP endpoints, but yeah, I mean that basically tells you that they're basically the same platform. In the roadmap, it's there that if at a certain point your flow becomes critical to the organization, you want lifecycle management, how people manage code, the flow, and things like that. There's a probable path to migrate them to Power Apps. So that's on the roadmap as well. So that's pretty much at a high level about Flow. Before we'll come back to it later during the demos, but I'll let Arun talk a little bit of Power Apps before we jump into the demos.
Thanks for that, Joe. That was a quick, brief summary about the Flow. So now it's time to actually understand what is Power App. So Power App is more about what the end users are going to see, what they are going to see on their devices. Like if you see the current way of developing business apps, if you see that there is a set of protocols which we focus on, like there are security, scalability, manageability, integration, and compliance. So that makes a set of people or a team happy, and most likely it will be the IT. And there is another set of users who expect it to be more like fast, iterative, cross-platform, beautiful, and easy, which are more like the end users or the consumers. So this is like a bit trade-off which happens between the different expectations of different teams, and this is where the Power Apps can help you. Like if you see this current set of statistics on how the business apps are built currently, like there's a few set of custom-built business solutions, and then they use a different set of SaaS systems. And there's a big chunk of SON which the business really need as an app, but that's not really made use of. And that's again an area where Power Apps can help you. So with Power Apps, we can definitely change the way we build apps. So let's start with what Power Apps allows you to do. Say that you have your data sources. We all have data sources. Business is flooded with data sources. And that's going to be your starting point. So you can connect to all your familiar data sources via Power Apps. And most of the SaaS systems, like 36 plus SaaS systems, are already supported currently as of today. And there will be more added in the future too. It can help you to connect all these systems. And also you can build apps without writing code. So you don't need to know how to write some C# or Java or some ASP.NET. You just need to be familiar with only one thing, which is Power Apps. And also you can publish the apps which you develop, and you can use it on web and as well as on mobile devices. It includes your mobile phones and also your tablets. How do we develop Power Apps, right? So that's the first question which comes into each one of your mind. For that, Microsoft allows you with an IDE. So for any development, we need an integrated development environment, right? And we have something for Power Apps that's called Power Apps Studio. So this is a small software which you can download from Microsoft Store, or you can use it from the web URL itself. You can develop apps within your browser. So this studio is something which offers you what you see is what you get model. So you drag and drop elements, and we create apps. And we'll see how these apps are being built when we jump into the demo. And like I said before, most of the popular SaaS systems, there are connectors available in the Connect is available within Power Apps as of today. So most of your familiar systems like Salesforce, Slack, OneDrive, Twitter, Excel files, Office 365, or SharePoint, all these things are available out of the box. What if you have your own data stores? So we talked about all your SaaS systems. Say that you are a business where you have your own databases or your own data sources. That's where you can connect your Power Apps to your custom data sources two ways. Either we can use a service which is available to download called Gateway service, which you just need to install it one of your server, and that with the help of Gateway you can access your own databases. Or you can extend it by developing your own custom API. So any IT team for sure. So if you seek the help of IT team, they can develop an custom API, which is nothing other than a REST service, and then you can plug in your Power Apps to use that custom API. And like I said before, the custom connection can be made with the help of Gateway, and the orange box which you see, it indicates your infrastructure or your corporate network, and your Gateway service need to be running in one of those machines which can connect to your database. So that's the only, yes? For Azure databases, if it is on cloud and if it is on your infrastructure as a service, then it is good to install a Gateway. If not, you can directly get it connected to your databases. Yeah, so I was just talking about this orange box, which is your environment, and you have your SQL database and Gateway service. So as today, like Joe mentioned earlier, currently it allows you to connect to SQL Server, and also if you have SharePoint on-premise. And we started hearing this term for a while now, the common data model. So it's a entity-based database design. So the people who are familiar with it will easily get it, that out of the box, Power Apps allows you to connect to your common data model design databases too. If not, you can create your own common data model based databases on cloud with the help of Power App Studio. You just need to define your data structure, and you can use it for your data storage. So before I end with my Power App session, I wanted to actually logically show how these two things are connected. The Flow and Power Apps are connected through the services, through the systems. So if you see this is a logical way. You can see that the Flow and Power Apps, they both are connected to the same box, while either it could be an on-premise database, or it could be the SaaS systems available in the market, or it could be using your custom API. By saying that, I think it's time for us to actually see something in action. So let's get into the demo.
Thank you. First, let's do the. Let's switch over to. Yep. So let's do a flow first, and what we want to do is do few quick scenarios, and to set a context about what we're building. What we could assume is, let's say we are in a team who manages a lot of requests coming in from various different sources. It could be internal employees who probably is asking us for IT support, whereas we also, let's assume that we respond to certain people outside the organization, maybe through a Twitter handle or a hashtag, let's say. So we'll build a couple of flows to mock these scenarios up. What we're trying to do is tell this story about right now. If we want to do this, there would be people looking at these different data sources where these questions or queries are coming in through. They're spending manual effort doing that, while with Flow, we could automate these processes to streamline data capturing and managing it in a better way. So what we'll do with first is a quick one to capture a Twitter feed. So this is basically the Flow web interface. If you go to flow.microsoft.com, when you signed in, you see that you could see all the flows that you've created. Like we said earlier, you could basically start from blank or use a template. if you click on template, it gives you all the templates that those are available. If you want to find certain templates that you want or you're trying to build with, let's say Twitter, and it would give you all the templates that basically uses Twitter. You could start with these. It's easier, but for the sake of demo, let's build one from scratch. So I'll go say create from blank, and the first one is the trigger that we spoke about earlier. So this is where the flow actually starts kicking in, right? So for this instance, what we want to do is when a Twitter feed comes in, and that's where we I would search for, let's say, Twitter, what are available from Twitter, and there is a connection or a trigger that's available from Twitter which says when a new tweet is posted. You could think of the trigger as various different things based on what flow you're building. You could basically schedule one if you want to using your recurrent. There's something called as recurrence, which you could use to schedule flows if you want them to rerun every 2 days, let's say. You could also have other connections which you can start the flow from. Let's start the Twitter one. Sorry. Yep. So I select this one, and what it basically gives me is this nice interface saying, okay, what kind of tweets that you want to filter out, right? So let me say demo flow app or whatever text that I want to filter out. So every time there's a tweet with this specific text, I want to do something with it. And that's where I would add my next step, and the next step was basically an action, a condition, or there are other things that you could use basically which are let's say loop or scope that you want to add if you're building complicated ones. But for this one, what we would do is we'll add an action, which is, let's say our team decided that all the requests that are coming in and that we need to manage, we'd put them into a SharePoint list, let's say. So what I want to do is whenever there's a Twitter feed that comes in with a specific message, I want to put them into one of the SharePoint lists that I have. So I select SharePoint, and it gives me a bunch of SharePoint options that I can use. I'm going to use the not that one. I'm going to use the create an item. Yep. And first thing I need to choose is which SharePoint site. Now you could see that in the background it's already figured out I'm logged in and it's pulling out all my SharePoint sites. The other interesting thing is if you go to the advanced options, you can always add a new connection if you want to add a connection to a different SharePoint site, and that's where the option to connect to your gateway comes in. And if I want to use my on-premise SharePoint list, let's say, I would have my gateway application running on one of my on-premise machines, and I would add that connection using that gateway here. So I'm not going to connect to my on-premise one, but you see that I've already created a gateway, which is basically the gateway service running on my laptop, which basically does nothing right now, but just to show that that's how your on-premise gateway would be running, and the connection would be available here. I'm not going to do that on-premise one. I'm going to still use my Office 365 SharePoint site. The moment I select the site, it pulls down all the lists that are available in the site. I'm going to use one specific one called support queries. I'll give it a few seconds before it loads up all the columns from that SharePoint list. Now what we are going to do is I have a feed to that message that has come in. I want to filter those messages and put into my SharePoint list. So the moment I click on the title box, I see a bunch of options that are appearing underneath the text box, which is nothing but the data from the previous steps that flow has basically executed, or in this case, the Twitter feed itself. So I'm going to basically say the title of the list item is basically the tweet text. I'll just put the details as well. Requester, maybe I'll use tweeted by. Request request source, I'm going to write Twitter because so that the people who are working on the tickets would know that this came from Twitter. And let's put in the ticket status is new. So that's it. And I click create flow, and my flow is already up and running. Now any tweet that comes in with the specific text that we said demo flow app or whatever, it goes into your SharePoint and starts sitting there. Now you could build logic based on what you want to do specifically, but just to try this out, demo flow app for Ignite demo. Let's do this out, and it takes maybe a few minutes before Flow picks it up and puts it into the list. We'll move on with a little more advanced flow, and we'll come back and see whether the tweet has come back into the SharePoint list or not. So what we want to do is maybe look at the same scenario and think about a scenario where my team also manages a lot of requests coming through email, and let's assume that there's this particular tool or system that's sending me email in a particular format. That means that I could extract information from that email, assign it to specific team directly from my flow itself, rather than just putting a dummy request and people figuring out who is supposed to work on that. So I've already built a sample flow for that. What I've done is I've looked at the email. Let it load up. So what it would do is when an email arrives in the mailbox, in my mailbox, you basically, I can set folder path or the additional filters itself here from who and all. I've not said anything right now, but you could. When an email comes, the second step that I wanted to was show you how to add more conditions to what you can filter based on instead of adding a direct action. So what you can do is add a condition block, and the condition blocks looks like this. It basically gives you a good, nice way to say that if the object or the email body or subject contains, let's say, tech support as a text, do something. If it doesn't, don't do anything. Now, what the interesting thing here is this condition is basically one single condition if you are doing through the UI. But like I said, I mean, it in the background, it's basically logic app that's running. So all the workflow definition language that you can use to define your logic apps can be used here to enhance your condition. So there is edit in advanced mode option at the bottom, which if you click, you basically see that the workflow definition language is what's working. So if I want to add another OR condition here, I could go ahead and do that additional OR condition there and put multiple conditions instead of just one, and then creating multiple. If you want to do 3 string checks, you don't want to put 3 blocks, and just put it into one condition. The other thing that I want to show is how do we connect to your custom API. So what I did is, let's assume the email that's coming from the different system is in a particular format, and my subject has, let's say, first part underscore a second part. I want to do a split of the first part to the second part. It's a pretty simple scenario, but I wanted to do it using a custom API. So what I did is I built a custom API, pretty simple one. All it does is a stringlet. But additionally, what you would have to do is define the API itself using Swagger. So I've defined the Swagger, I've deployed it to my Azure. So this is where my Swagger definition sits. Yep. So there's a string splitter that I have. It has few methods that I've created, which is nothing but a string splitter. I would say, let's say before underscore after, and I run the expose. You see that the response is basically the second part of the string. So I'm going to use this custom API. Now you could imagine this custom API being any of your business logic running in your organization. So it basically, I've added those connections, and to add those connections, you basically go to Power Apps, and on the Power Apps window, there are connections that you manage. There's no direct way to add a connection in the Flow window, but you can add the external API connection through the Power Apps web UI. It basically shows that both are connected, but the other option is basically on the Flow you can use your HTTP direct and HTTP handler, but it needs to be a secured one, and there are certain definitions that you can do. But there are multiple ways to do that. But what we've done is I've added that connection here. I've defined that the moment I add the Swagger, it basically Flow basically understand that it takes one input, which is what my API defined using Swagger. So I put the subject in, which splits the subject into two. I do the same SharePoint create item here, assigns whatever fields that I want to, and also at the end responds to the person who sent the email saying that, hey, your ticket has been assigned to so and so. What we could additionally do, since it supports Graph API and things, is you could probably, once the email comes in, you could do a query about manager or your department, let's say. If it needs an approval, send it for an approval as well, and do that list item creation with all those fields populated and saying that, hey, your ticket has been assigned to Arun, is working on it, rather than somebody going to the list and figuring that out. So I've not done that part, but basically this is what it is. I would want to give some time to Arun to do a Power App demo as well, but this is how you define your flows. A few quick other things that I want to show is on the flows that you've created, you do have this option where you can go check for all your flows that have run, and if it's not run, if it's failed, what's failed. I don't have anything that flow has basically run for, but if there was an error, it basically shows you specific steps as in where it failed, and if it failed. Oh yeah, so the tweet that we did earlier has actually run through fine, and if I look at the trace of what happened, you could basically see the UI where it says that, oh, it did the first step, it did the second step as well. So the green checkbox basically tells you that it did those activities. If it failed, it gives you a pretty detailed step instruction as in what did not work, so you can fix your flow in the first place. With the mobile app coming into the picture, you could also start getting push notifications from your flow. So if your manager, if there's an email from your manager, you want to push notification on your phone, you could do that as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the flow scenario. Once you create the flow, you could always see all your flows running. You could turn it off, turn it on as well, and continue. Now we've put all our requests coming in to a SharePoint list. Now let's see how Power Apps can use this to do something about that.
Sure, Joe. So thanks a lot for explaining how you have set up your virtual team, which automated all the support queries which comes through Twitter and email to a single source, which is a SharePoint list. So that eases a lot of your manual task now, right? Your team need not have to look into the Twitter feeds continuously, because all has been automated. A system is continuously monitoring Twitter feeds, and it's all directly getting it connected to the SharePoint list. And the same is done to the email. So it saves a lot of his virtual team's time. So now imagine that I'm actually owning a virtual team again, and my team is responsible for doing the on-site execution of supports. So my team will always go to a person directly. So they could be an on-site, which could be within the same office, but in a different floor or a different room, or they could be even traveling to somewhere. So my team need mobility. My team members need to have data on their devices. Currently, the only thing which they have is a SharePoint site, which is on Office 365, which they can obviously access from the web browser, but that doesn't give the best experience to them. And they always carry their mobile phones or their tablets with them, like most of us do. So let's see how I can help my team members to be more productive by creating a Power App. So I'll start with the studio, the Power App Studio, which is installed locally onto this computer. So if I go and look for Power Apps, so I see a trusted Windows Store app there, and this is available for you to download from Windows Store at this moment, and it has been live for a few months now. So once I have installed it, I'll be having this studio loaded, which you see here, and this is my starting point. Either I can choose to open an existing app, or I can try to create a new app from my studio. So let me see how I can create a new app from my studio by connecting the same SharePoint site which Joy has automated to get all the Twitter and email notifications into the SharePoint list. So let me connect to the same SharePoint site. So for now, I'm going to choose how an app can be defined in minutes. Okay. So let's see that. So I click on font layout. So that's again the first decision which you need to make. Either you need to design it for font or tablet. So once I make the decision, I can, since I'm already logged into my Power App Studio as Joe James, I see his website, the same website which he showed during his flow demonstration. So I click on one of the recent site, and then you see the same behavior is what you saw when he was configuring his flow. He selected a SharePoint site, then it picked up all the SharePoint list and libraries there. Then I can make a selection here, say that I want to connect to support queries, and I click on connect. This is where the magic happens. This is where the Power App Studio generates an app based on your data source. And we'll wait for a while it is generating the app for you. So just like any app which you expect, it should have a listing screen, it should have a view screen, and also a screen which helps you to edit data. So all these things is being done in the background from the Power App Studio. As you can see, it created 3 windows for you. And when you see the screen, you will be like, oh, I'm very familiar with this screen, right? Most of us will be thinking that it's very familiar. The primary reason is this has been designed by very close look and feel against Microsoft Office products like PowerPoint and Excel. So just like when you create a PowerPoint, you have different slides which comes on your left. So let's try to see the same thinking in an app. So you have on your left, you have your listing screen, then there is a detail screen, and finally there is a data entry screen. Yep. But one thing you can always one thing which you will obviously notice here is that the data which is presented out of the box when an Power App Studio created an app for you is not what you want, right? Because some of the text doesn't look like it's more meaningful, right? The first title is this has been addressed. What does it mean to me? But I want to see what's the title, right? I want to see the title in my listing screen. So for that, it's as simple as I clicked on that item, then I changed from the drop down to title. So you see, that's a title field which comes from the SharePoint list. So which is nothing other than this column which you see here, the first one. And if you want to readjust the size of the data which is being presented, the control, you can just drag it around. And also if you want more space on this, just drag it out and drag these elements out to bottom. I'm trying to be my best with my mouse, and and then I can save it locally if I want, or I can save this app to my cloud. For now, I'm not going to create an app from scratch and start making tweaks in front of you, right? So to save time, I already created an app for me, and I will show you my creativity. So let me start with an excuse. I'm not a good UI expert. So if you don't find my app pleasing, that's just because that my skills on my UI is not good. So I have a support assistant phone app. So anytime when you open an app in a designer mode, it connects to the data source and it tries to refresh the data. And also we are connected to this network where the network is not up to optimum. That's probably the reason why it is taking some time. Otherwise, it was quite quick. And orange is one of my favorite color, and also Ignite is also orange, so I try to keep the same theme. Come on, yeah, it's loading. So it's connecting to the same SharePoint data source and trying to refresh the data in real time on my designer mode. If I want to have a preview of how this app is going to work, I can click on this preview app button or just need to press F5. So the people who are familiar with Microsoft Visual Studio, one of their favorite keys is F5 because they like to press F5, build, and see what they have developed. So it has very similar behavior in Power Apps Studio 2. And you can see that all the data which is here is coming from SharePoint list. I can even do a quick search, and it should filter it for you. Or I can click on that row, which will take me to the view mode. So here, if you see, some of the data doesn't look meaningful, right? If you see the choice field is showing that Microsoft Azure connected SharePoint, right? It's not meaningful. We really want to see what's the data which is behind it, the data which you saved in SharePoint. So for that, again, it's easy. I click on that element. So these elements are data cards. Each and every element which you connect to a data source comes in as a card, and each card has its own properties, and also a card can contain multiple elements in it. So I selected a data card, then I can click here and say that, oh, my value shown is data.type, which is not what I want to see. I want to see the value. So I make a value change, so I choose to show me the value which comes in, and you can see that that changed to closed, which is more meaningful. Similarly, for assign to, which is a field, it's a SharePoint people picker field. It's just connected to your enterprise directory. Again, for that, it's not meaningful, so let me change it. And the action which I'm going to do is again going to be very similar. So I say that I want to see the display name of the user. Oh, your organization has Bob Dylan.
Yeah, my favorite.
He must be very popular. So that's the easiness of using Power Apps Studio. You developed an app, you connect it to your data source, and here we use SharePoint Online, but it could be any of your data source. And how you develop it is going to be very, very similar. So now we talked about how to connect to your data sources, right? But mobile and tablets are much better. It has its own device capabilities, right? It has location. We all like location, right? Our phones are helping us to tag our location, and it makes our life a lot easier. It has camera, right? Every phone has camera, front camera and back camera. And also on the phone, you can write, right? So all these things are available for you out of the box in Power Apps Studio. And to show that, I have created a temporary page in my app, which just shows you what are the cool factors which are available in Power Apps. So I have this magic button on top. I clicked on it, and it says that your camera is not set up. Why? Because I'm running it on a laptop which has only one camera. So let me try to toggle it. You see, that's me. So all these are happening right with your designer, right? You don't have to deploy it to your phone to test it. It's all happening right on your screen. And similarly, if I click on it, it takes a photo, it pushes it into the gallery control, and you can see it live. And this is the ink control which I mentioned earlier. So this is very useful when you have to take a signature, for example. Then I can scribble, I can change the thickness, or even I can change the color, or I can clear it. And also I have mentioned about the location. So I click on this, it takes the location coordinate and it shows to me. So if you want to show a real meaningful, maybe an address, you create your own address API, or you can use one of the existing APIs available out in the market. and then pass in your geocodes, which will return you the full address and show it in the app. So these are the small possibilities which I want to show you. And I also wanted to show you this in a device, right? I have my iPad with me. So let me toggle the view. Did it? Yep, free. Okay. So this is an iPad which my son uses a lot. So you will see a lot of cartoons in it. So I had to fight with him in the morning saying that, can I take this to the office? And they're like, no. So let me take the Power Apps. So this Power Apps, I already logged in as Joe James. So all the apps which are available to him is visible on this landing page. I can refresh it by pulling down. Most of the iOS users know how to refresh their data. And then I'm going to open up one of the mobile app first and then a tablet. So the only thing which I have installed on my iPad is Power Apps app. That's a bit difficult. Power Apps app, right? And the same thing which we saw on that device, on the laptop, has been pushed to the cloud. So that's why when he's logged in as Joe James into this iPad, I can see the same app running. So it's connected to the same SharePoint, so we can see the same things. And whatever I did during my demo with my PC, I can do it here too. And it just works as it is. And if I go to the magic button again, it shows, obviously this is a tablet now, which has a front camera and back camera. So I can toggle the camera, and you see this is the back camera now. And to do all these things, it doesn't take a lot of development effort from me. It's all about adding the right camera control and then just toggling the camera. As simple as that. I can take photo, it goes in, I can note it down, I can take geocodes. All works as what you saw already on the desktop. So that's the proof which you can make sure, right? The things which I developed on my PC, it works in PC, and similarly when I published it in my cloud, it works on my devices too. So just imagine my team who is going to the on-site, they just need to have an Power Apps. Once I share the app with them, they can easily download it, connect to the same data stores, they can make changes. By saying that, I think I'm done with the Power Apps. You have questions? Yes?
Yeah. You're saying that on device you need to have Power Apps app like client.
Yes.
Which will connect to the cloud and download whatever apps you have there.
So that's like an, what do you call that? It's like an agent in between your device and your app. So this Power Apps is available on Android. The Power Apps app is available on Android and also for iOS. And the only thing which you need to make sure that you logged in to the app using your Office 365 Enterprise account.
Yep. So before we jump into the question, I'd probably want to jump through a few more slides, and then we'll open up for questions. So thank you, Arun, for that demo.
Switch to sign.
Yep. There you go. So this right now, Flow Power Apps are in preview. They are going GA end of this quarter, and there are a lot of things that you can expect to see when it goes through general availability, as in the SLAs and things like that. There's a lot of good things that are in the roadmap as well, because enterprises that use or would prefer to use also do come up with a lot of challenges in themselves, as in how do we prevent our users from posting our enterprise content onto Facebook, for example, or how do we control those? So the admin center is basically coming up soon, which would let you control things like what apps can post to what other apps, how you can prevent data loss, features like co-authoring, where you want to build Flow not by yourself, because right now we're all doing it using one account and you share it with others, but co-authoring feature, like if you want to build a big flow or a complicated one using or share accounts, those are some of the things that to look forward to, which are coming later on. This roadmap slide is basically from the Ignite US. Yeah, there's quite a lot. You could go through this, but the other questions that we usually get is about what are the licensing and the plans that we have for Flow. So Flow basically would be available for with most of your Office 365 subscriptions. There are limit or the number of flows that you can use per user is defined. There is, like you said, you could go through the slide and basically decide that this is what Flow with, let's say, Office E3 gives me. But the free one basically lets you do flows about $750 per month a run. So a flow run is basically a successful run of the flow. It does keep checking whether, let's say, the email it has come or not, but the successful run is what a run is. So that's pretty much at a high level of Flow and Power Apps. To summarize it, it lets you, like you've seen, automate your day-to-day activities pretty quickly, as well as build apps for your phone on devices which leverage the device capabilities pretty quickly. Business users can build it, power users can build it, and then make it available in the course of, let's say, like 30 minutes demo time. Yeah. We'll take some questions if there are specific.
Mine was just about the photo and the signature that was put into the app.
Yes.
Does that automatically create columns in your SharePoint list?
No, that was I was just showing it for showing the device capabilities, but you can make it to save it to some of your external data sources. And as far as I understand, currently it doesn't allow you to save it to SharePoint, but you can write your own custom API to take the stream and save it to wherever you want. So you may have to bridge it with the help of a custom API for now, but I know that it should be coming in the roadmap soon.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll take that one first. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Is the mobile data offline once you've synced and downloaded?
Uh-huh.
Is that keep it local? So
No.
you don't need to get connected?
No, it's not local as such.
Yes.
It's basically the connection pulls that data when you open the app. So it, yeah.
Yes. But there's also a provision to have variables within the app, just like we have any local saved information, right? So maybe if you're really creative, maybe you can use the power of variables to store the data which comes in, and then work it out.
Yes. Although we say that it's for business users and power users, if you look at the designer that we had, it has quite a lot of features on it. So if you want, let's say, for few data to show up later on, you could probably put in your variables or something and keep it synced. Yeah.
Related to the last question, have you noticed any other restrictions with SharePoint data? So about 6 months ago, I had an issue with the people picker, so I see that that's been managed metadata was another one that you.
Yeah.
So even the people picker, it was a very recent update. Right, the version which you might have used 6 months back will definitely not have it.
Yeah, so probably the thing that we should understand is, although we use SharePoint as a demo, from a Flow perspective or Power perspective, it's a data source, right?
Yep.
And all of them would come up with their own set of challenges or their own specific or needs or functionality for that matter. So it's improving. So let's say like SharePoint improved. But the other way to look at it is about if SharePoint APIs are already open, the web services are there, right? So, and you could add connections to those APIs if you want to really achieve those functionalities. So out of the box, it might not be button clicks, but if you want to actually do it, you still have ways to do that.
Right. And also this Power Apps is in a preview stage, so I'm sure over the run it will be adding more features. And SharePoint is one of their primary technology, so I'm definitely sure managed metadata will be coming in soon.
Yeah, right now it's in preview, so you could just go sign up and start using it.
Is there any future plans for any sort of offline capability, like
I've
making a certain version of the app?
I have not seen anything specific on the roadmap. I've based my roadmap slide on the presentation that came out recently on the Use Ignite, and obviously the Flow blog, which is pretty much updated every week. There's quite a lot of updates, but I've not seen anything specific.
Yeah.
Just the
On the-
example you use, you can kind of relate it to like field work
Yeah.
and sometimes throughout
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, probably that goes into the advanced app building scenarios where probably the thing is we need to look at this as the easy way to automate your things than building advanced apps, right? So I've not seen on the roadmap if there's something like that.
Apologies if you covered this, I came a little late.
No problem.
What about exporting the workflows?
Yeah, so good question. So it's not there right now. So it's basically that you build your flows is associated with your account, and you basically share that with people in your organizations. But that's definitely on the roadmap, as in how do you co-author, as well as the application lifecycle management, as in how do you move one from test to prod to, let's say, some other environment. So all those scenarios as in packaging, and it's in the roadmap. It's not there right now.
What about, but will that be standards-based though? The workflows
Mm-hmm.
will be exported?
It's not exportable, but when it comes to I would assume that when the support for ALM and all comes into picture, you would probably have a way to package this. For Power Apps, there is, because Power Apps you could save a local copy and it basically is a packaged file that you can move around. But Flow, it's not in that state right now.
Thank you.
How do you see the relationship between IT, traditional IT departments, and your users that are designing your flows and your apps? So
What would be your specific scenario? I mean,
more around how much you would expect them to go off and do their own thing, or rely on your IT departments to give them help and assistance.
so it would depend on what sort of applications that you're allowing your business users to build, right? I mean, like we said, the custom API is one good example, right? Your IT could be looking at giving those custom APIs deployed so your team can start building API. Let's say I have a payroll app which our employees use. Your IT could think about publishing an API, and that's your IT's job. That would mean that business users and individuals can basically start building their own automations based on that, right? But if it comes to building really complicated flows, I mean, although technically possible, it's probably not a business user scenario. It's probably a power user scenario, or if it requires quite a lot of integration, you might be even thinking of Azure Logic Apps instead of Flow. Yeah.
So,
What sort of management and governance do you have already out of box, like permissions to delegate specific set of users, these permissions to create apps and share apps between other users?
There's
What
not.
management can happen right now?
So right now, the author of the app,
Yeah.
or basically whoever is creating the app, is basically the owner sharing that
yes.
app to others in your organization.
So when you share, you can decide whether they need to have edit rights or just view rights. And also, once you share, when you log into the web app, you can actually see with who all you have actually shared the app or the flow with, and you can revoke access also, right?
And how you would probably think about this is your underlying data and your systems are what actually manages the permissions, right? So if I'm doing a connection to SharePoint, which I don't have access to, the connection itself would not work. So if I create an app which goes into and puts data into a SharePoint list, and I share it with Arun who doesn't have access to it, then
It won't
it's
allow me to
basically
save.
not. So it's not the Power Apps and Flow itself managing the permissions. It's the automations that you create for your users and you share with your colleagues so that they could also leverage it. But there are, if you have seen the earlier slides, which has the roadmap, it has the admin screens where you could do a lot of management about what can be done using apps. It's not an individual user per se, but
So
what
the
can
more
what the apps
governance,
can do.
governance is in the roadmap.
But as an IT administrator, can I just review all the apps that my business created and just,
Right now, there's no admin center. So
Yeah.
yeah. So but admin center is in the roadmap, or I'm not sure if it's coming in the GA, but admin center definitely is in the roadmap, and that's where you could see all the Power Apps or a Flow in your org.
does anyone has permission to create their own apps, or there
As
is
long as-
specific role need to be
No, as long as you have your Office 360, or basically right now it's in preview, so you could sign up anyway.
Yeah.
But once you are in GA, and like you said, I mean the license are it's basically based on the free or the Office 365 license. So if you have license to it, you could basically start
Yeah.
creating.
Would you see that this would introduce the risk, the same risk as back in times we had with everyone creating their own Access app on their sort of local drive and doing their own dirty stuff in there, and then when it comes back to supporting this Access app, they go back to IT department and say, this app is not working anymore.
No, so the fact is, you are basically doing what you're doing right now, right? So if you are managing list or SharePoint manually, that's what you're automating, right? So it's not you're building a whole solution for the entire organization. I'm doing this activity every day 10 times. I'm going to automate it so that I don't have to spend manual time. So look at this as things that you automating your life and your colleagues' lives, maybe making simpler. The other scenarios where you're building bigger apps, admins are managing it. Yes, that will come through but let's say the app itself would be developed by an IT team and published and made available to your organization through the App Store, not App Store, but App Source.
So these are more personal flows.
Yeah. It is the most personal. Yeah, these are related to my flows. The only thing is you share it with others if you want to give it to somebody else.
Yeah, great session, guys. Just wanted to know, I think you guys have kind of answered it, but with the apps, let's say you give it to a set of people, but maybe a manager gets to see an extra field.
Yeah.
and
So
they can do it.
those kind of conditional logic can be applied, whereas it is not from an authorization level,
Yeah.
but it's more about the data which is present in the data itself.
So when the app is seen by somebody else.
Yeah. So you can always
So
toggle it.
you have rules which are very similar to the Excel formulas that you can apply. So you would say if this is that, then do this, right? So you could say disable this field if this is the case. So you
Yep.
could all do that kind of thing. So you could enable, disable fields, make it visible, invisible.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you very
guys.
much.